Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another Friday Reads. And even though I know it's a little bit into April at this point, before we get started talking about some of my current reads and recent reads and that kind of thing, leave a comment down below if you'd still like to see my March book haul and March wrap up. I just got completely derailed earlier in the month, but trying to get back in the swing of things. But let's just start with the first book that the one I've most recently finished, and it's Let Only Red Flowers Bloom, Identity and Belonging in Xi Jinping's China by Emily Feng. And this is a fantastic work of journalism. And what the author is doing is she's profiling different figures of minority populations or different ethnic groups within mainland China that are facing challenges, we'll just say, due to the CCP's kind of different policy changes over the past 10 years or so. So you have things like, for example, those in the north who speak Mongolian as their primary language, Muslim Uyghurs, the dissidents that have fled to Taiwan, Hong Kong, different professions even, like human rights activists and lawyers is a tough sell in mainland China for sure. But the author does a really good job balancing kind of the individual profiles for a lot of these chapters, along with kind of the broader, I guess the bigger picture of why it's important and that kind of thing. And China isn't like something, at least modern China isn't something I've read a lot about, but I feel like I've kind of like gotten up to speed a little bit on a few of the different things kind of going on. I think my favorite chapters, or I feel like I learned the most about, were the ones dealing with identity and belonging in Taiwan and Hong Kong, and how that like kind of, two governments, one nation kind of thing, how that even like works, and that kind of stuff, and what that actually means for the people living in those areas and stuff like that. So I definitely highly encourage you, if you like staying up on like current events and that kind of thing. I feel like this would be a good one for sure if you're interested at all in contemporary like Chinese politics. And I want to thank Crown for sending me that one. So next up, we have 12 Trees. This is one I'm currently reading, and The Deep Roots of Our Future by Daniel Lewis. And this, I recently did a buddy read on Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard. So I figured I'll just like keep the theme going and read another tree book. And Avid Reader Press did send this to me as like part of a care package. I think it's an older, maybe not older isn't probably the right word, but I want to say it's a couple of years old. I lied. I guess it was just last year. Anyways, when I had requested a different book, they sent this one along with it. I think when they found out I just like nature books and that kind of thing, so that's really cool. And this is just like a nice, comfy read, just profiling 12 different tree species throughout the book. I read the first two so far, which was the bristlecone pines and coastal redwoods so far. But then it goes kind of, it's a global book. We got different trees from like all over the world and stuff. Let's see if we can find a couple of them. If I could, so like sandalwood trees in India, I think amber trees in, I want to say Scandinavia, true eucalyptus, things like that. So olive trees in, I'm assuming around the Mediterranean somewhere. So anyways, it's going to be, I think it's just going to be like a really kind of cozy, comfy read for people like me. If you read nature books and stuff, it doesn't get really, in one sense, it doesn't get more basic than, you write 12 chapters on 12 different species of tree and kind of, you do a little bit of like their life history and ecology and stuff and why they're important and kind of cool stuff about them and everything like that. So you still like learn quite a bit as Soph, is trying to knock over the thing. She won't get in the video this time apparently, but she'll not try to knock over the stand. But anyways, where was I going with that? I don't know. Like I said, it's just a very comfy read, and I've already learned some stuff too, just in the first chapter or two. One thing I didn't realize is I didn't realize trees could be albino, but there are albino trees. So yeah, that's interesting. So I'm gonna end up doing probably a rabbit hole this weekend, learning about albino trees like off on my own. One here that I did request when I heard this author on a podcast. So I don't listen to many podcasts, but a couple of gardening ones. And this one was Cultivating Place. And Brooke Williams was talking about reenchantment and dragonflies. And dragonflies are my favorite insect. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really cool. And I love how halfway through the like, you know, they're just discussion, he kind of drops, yeah, my wife is wife's an author too, you know, just Terry Tempest Williams. Just drops it so casually. Everything like that, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I had to go check it out. He's written actually quite a few different books. I've read about 30 or 30 or 40 pages into this one. So it's not hardcore on the sciencey stuff. There is like we're kind of getting to like kind of identifying some species of dragonflies and everything. But it's not primarily like a work of like natural history per se, but more how dragonflies have like kind of shaped his, I guess, like view of the world, and like kind of deciding to like look closely at things and slowing down sometimes and being aware of surroundings. And then the big thrust of the book is becoming re-enchanted with the world, and just kind of like how just like in the modern day and age, we're very cynical and disenchanted with pretty much everything, including the natural world, and how I guess dragonflies for him help bring that back. So I've been really enjoying it. He does make a disclaimer at the beginning that there isn't like a lot of like the natural science history kind of stuff, so I can't even like knock it for that. But we'll see. Like I said, I'm only 30 or 40 pages in, so there might be a little bit more as well. And then the group read that I'm doing over on my my philosophy Discord is AC Grayling's The History of Philosophy. This is turning out pretty good. I've read all the ancient and classical section already. I'm on the medieval philosophy section right now. Yeah, I just definitely feel like medieval philosophy just does not do it for me. I feel like every time it comes up in like any book, I just kind of like go like, well, I wish we kind of would have just like stuck back in like Greece and Rome and stuff like that. But anyways, I love Grayling's writing style. He has very good symbols and like kind of like metaphors and like, I guess, like images that he uses to describe the different things that are going on. And he covered everything. I want to say it was about 150 pages-ish. Let's see, well, maybe not quite. Yeah, 135 pages. Well, I lied. 128 pages for like kind of the ancient and classical stuff. So he did at least give them a little bit of time there. That's probably about a fifth of the book or so. So a lot of times in these kind of overviews, you kind of have like a page or two on all the pre-Socratics, and then a couple pages, on Plato, and then like Aristotle and stuff. So it's really nice to have like a big, like fleshed out section there. But definitely looking forward to the kind of the more contemporary 20th century stuff that I'm just like kind of weaker in. Just never really studied in school, so I'm hoping I get kind of like a big overview and can kind of find some different authors to go down more rabbit holes with. And then next up, for two books that I plan on reading after finishing some of these ones up. I don't know why, I feel like, this year I feel like I've started like 4 or 5 books like all at once, like pretty much just consistently, and like need to like act like this way. It takes me so long to get through some of them, just because I'm reading like a bunch all at once. But once I finish The History of Philosophy by Grayling, actually probably before I lied, I was supposed to start it today. It's probably not going to happen at this point, but another one that we've been talking about on the Discord is At the Existentialist Cafe by Sarah Bakewell, Freedom Being in Apricot Cocktails. And this is all about kind of a lot of the French existentialist thinkers during the first half of the 20th century. So, Sartre and Beauvoir, a couple others like Heidegger, I think Albert Camus is like in there and stuff. And like I said, like existentialism, besides kind of just like the brief stuff in like 101 and 102 that you had to like kind of like read about, I never really did any deep dives at all on. So I'm hoping this kind of fleshes out a lot of their, even just like from a historical perspective, just kind of like they're like kind of like life stories and filling in some context and stuff on like when they were writing and where and why and all that kind of thing too, as well as their actual ideas and stuff like that. And then lastly, continuing for People April here, we have After the North Pole by Erling Kage, a story of survival and myth-making in melting ice. So him and his friend, just went sledding to the North Pole by their own power. Didn't use any sleds. They didn't use any like pre-cached like stores or depots or anything. So everything, I guess, was just carried on a sled. They just skied and dragged the sled behind them. And as someone who has cross-country skied a couple of times, I can tell you, I can't even imagine cross country skiing all the way to like the North Pole. So it's just a crazy like kind of like adventure feat. But from what I understand, I've watched a couple of like YouTube clips of the author here, and it's not all just like kind of like macho stuff, which I think some of these kind of like maybe it's not quite the same as like the mountain climbers and like the super endurance athletes and all that kind of stuff. I feel like it's a lot of like kind of like bragging rights kind of thing. He's talking it more of like dealing with like kind of adventure and like kind of like the whole like aspect of like nature in the Arctic and how it's so different and isolating and stuff like that. I don't know, so it just sounded pretty interesting, so I'm really looking forward to actually getting on with this one, hopefully before the end of April for People April. So there you have it. Those are some books I plan on reading, the 3 books that I'm like kind of juggling up in the air right now. Let me know what you're reading literally right today down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next Friday videos. But hopefully before then, like I said, this year's been kind of wonky. I feel like I do a bunch of videos and I have to like take like a 10-day break and then do a bunch of videos and all that kind of thing. But hopefully everything gets straightened out. Potentially, for those who've like watched some of my previous videos, that the job thingy that I was like talking about might become like a thing, which would be pretty crazy. So we're gonna see what happens there. But anyways, like I said, list down below whatever you're currently reading at the moment, and I'll see you in the next one. Always remember, read victoriously.